Well, hold on, we're live here. We are live, Washington WREIA 2022. Good to see some of you joining us, some familiar faces. Charlie, Jim, Sarah. Sarah, are you joining us from Hawaii? I imagine. Dominic, good to see you, buddy. We're going to let everybody kind of come online. I know it's a little late to wish everyone a happy new year, but I do want to wish you all a good new year. We're going to set up tonight. I'm going to wait for a few more folks to come on. Gloria, good to see you. Alan, good to see you all. We're going to set up tonight as a little bit of a fireside chat, if you will. We're going to have a good discussion on a couple good questions, but I do ask you, if you can, to chime in. As I said in the video, if you saw that on the email leading up to WREIA, really want to know what you guys are experiencing, what you guys are thinking about the market, and if we truly are heading for a bubble. So getting all of your insights going to help this discussion move forward. I'm certainly going to give you my opinion. I'm going to give you what I'm experiencing right now out in the marketplace. Jim, I see Jim Howell's on. Jim and I share a lot of different ideas and articles and stories and books. And Jim knows that I read quite a bit every day on real estate and economics and geopolitics, if you will, if we want to get up in some of the higher discussions. But it's just interesting what folks are saying about the markets and what's going on around the world. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. I know this isn't kind of the bread and butter, how to wholesale a piece of real estate or how to find a good renovator. We're going to address those topics. If you've been with me for the past X amount of years, you know that we kind of go through a lot of different things. We treat some months as bread and butter, and then we treat some other months, especially online here, we can tackle specific subjects for a little bit of time. Just things that are going on in our business. If you're new to Washington WREIA, I'm happy that you're joining us. Just so you know a little bit about us, we've been at this now for 20 plus years. And all Washington WREIA is, when I really kind of boil it down, it's just a group of folks that here mostly located in the Washington, D.C. metro area that are interested or involved in some capacity in the real estate investment business. Most of us are on the residential side. We certainly have people that invest in commercial properties. We have investors that buy notes. We have quite a few investors that own residential and some commercial real estate. We have quite a few investors that want to and actively wholesale real estate. We have a lot of investors that buy, renovate, and sell real estate. So it's just a collection of people kind of all around the Washington, D.C. metro area that get together on a monthly basis and other times too, online and in person, hopefully one day, and just share kind of our experiences and stories and unique experiences, if you will, on investing in real estate here in the market. And again, this month, I wanted to kind of address these two subjects. Are we in a housing bubble? And yes or no, kind of a 2-year blueprint. And again, we'll kind of go through that. Adam Margolis, thanks for joining us. I see you made a little comment on Atomic Habits. It's a great book. Yeah, we did end up last year talking about that book. I hope a lot of you were able to grab that, or at least see some of the inserts online and start, kind of working that into your life. It's a good business book. And again, a lot of these books that we recommend, they're not, beach novels. They're nothing that you want to get on an hour and a half plane ride and read necessarily. They're just good resource business books that you can kind of go back to, kind of reread, kind of implement a few of the strategies. And I think you'll see a big difference in your business if you continue to do that. I want to start out by apologizing for my voice. Like maybe many of you, I have been battling a little bit this month with not feeling so well. Not quite sure if it's COVID. I have a stinking feeling it might have been, but I'm on the other side of it and starting to feel pretty well. But if my energy level is a little bit down tonight, I do apologize, because I am still kind of recovering a little bit from whatever this is. I think it's just kind of the flu. But anyways. All right, so let's jump in again. As we go through, I see a lot of folks on the screen that are pretty involved in the real estate investment business. So if you have comments or you have your own experience, if you have something that I'm saying that you don't quite agree with, or maybe some unique experience that you've had as far as the markets go to give all of us a little bit of insight into the market would be really helpful. Because as I said in the build up to this, we can all read all these economists. I follow a number of economists. I follow different people at George Mason University. Some of you know for many years have gone to their annual conference where they talk about the local housing market and the local economy. I also follow some other economists. I follow Lawrence Yun, Y-U-N, with National Association of Realtors. I think he's pretty good, and obviously he's involved in our business. I also try to look at some of the bigger hedge funds and some of the big boys, if you will, and kind of seeing what they say. Now, again, their businesses are completely different than ours, but it's good to hear what some of these folks say. I do believe that the more and more you read, the more and more confused you certainly can get. And that's why I go back to, quote unquote, the streets. That's why I kind of go back to you folks and in my own business to figure out what is going on in our local market and our local businesses in order for us to position ourselves in order to take advantage of any kind of market corrections or anything going on in the market. And I'm going to address some of that. But the bottom line is, honestly, I don't think any of us know. I don't think any of us really, really know what is going to go on with the market going forward. And the reason is, my opinion, is we're in new territory. I mean, we have lived through and are living through 100-year pandemic that none of us, I don't think too many of us, certainly online here, were around in 1919 that could give us insight onto what exactly happened after a worldwide pandemic. And obviously the world is a much different place than it was in 1920. We can read about it. We can read about human nature is human nature. So you can read about some of the things that happened. But what exactly is going to happen to the markets, housing prices, stock prices, all of these assets, if you will, as we come out of this pandemic? And that is really the real question. So tonight, we're going to start out with a little bit of economics, if you will, and then we're going to delve into maybe some more meat and potatoes about the market. And then I'm going to end up, as I said, with kind of a 2-year blueprint, kind of something that I'm working on in my business. And certainly I think that you all can work on your businesses. Now, as we start this talk and to start this process, remember, you have your own little economy, if you will. You know better than I what exactly you're trying to accomplish in real estate investment. For example, just seeing some folks on the screen, I know that Charlie has been focused on, and I haven't seen Charlie now for a year and a half. It's unbelievable, but I know that Charlie's been focusing on notes, buying and selling and repositioning distressed notes, good paying notes, things of that nature. I also know that Dominic online has been more focused on buying and selling properties, wholesaling some, renovating some. So my point is that all of our economies are a little bit different based on what you are doing. So take this with hopefully and apply it to exactly what you're doing. So let's talk about the economy here a little bit. Dana, good to see you. You're a newcomer. It's great. Happy to have you. Feel free to comment. Feel to ask us any questions that you might have as we go through some of this discussions. So what's going on right now in our economy? Well, if you haven't had your head in the sand, you've been reading and you've been feeling in your own life things that are going on around us. Number one, we are experiencing 40-year high inflation. All right. Again, I don't think a lot of us were around in the early to mid 70s from a business standpoint that were able to kind of walk through some of this in the early 80s. I mean, some of us started hearing from some of our mentors, for my example, for Ernie Kessler, when he was buying properties and he was creatively financing things where interest rates were 18, 19%. I mean, that was before my time. I do remember as a little kid, though, lining up for gas on certain days with my father. I remember some of those inflationary times that were upon us and how we kind of walked through that. But again, I was just a kid. I was more worried about making a layup or hitting a home run in baseball. So I never experienced that. Now we have experienced many, many things in our careers, in our real estate investment careers, but most of us have not experienced a time of very high inflation. So we got to look at that. That is here. Now, whether or not that is here to stay is the big question. the big gorilla in the room, right? A lot of the controlling party, the Democratic Party right now, and a lot of Republican economists, quite honestly, feel like this is something that is transitory. And what does that mean? And I don't want to bore you with this too much, but it's interesting to talk about some of this. The transitory part of inflation is, will we walk through this as the supply chains loosen up? I think we all understand that it's very hard to get goods into ports, trucks on the road, trucks to the stores, and that's creating this backlog of products that is increasing some of the prices. So will that, as this pandemic plays out, and hopefully we're on the sixth, seventh, eighth inning of this, and as we go through this year, this will ease a little bit, and that some of the supply chain will get back in order. Remember, back in March of 2020, when the whole world shut down, all of us went into our homes and we had all this money. Literally, the US government has pumped in $6 trillion into this economy, $6 trillion. But none of us could do anything. None of us could go anywhere. We didn't go to restaurants. We didn't go to movies. We haven't traveled. We haven't done this thing. So we took that discretionary income and we started buying things. We bought stuff. Americans love stuff. And we bought Pelotons, and we binged on Netflix, and we bought new patio furniture, and we refinished our basements, and we did all these different things that put tremendous pressure on all these products. And now that these products can't get to us, we have some of this, certainly some of this inflation. You've seen huge inflation in energy prices. As we've tried to get away from some of dependency on oil, you're seeing some of these things, happen, whether you agree with that or disagree with that. Our oil prices have gone up 55% this year. Some of our commodities, things like coffee has doubled. All this is happening now in our market. And that could be leading to this massive asset bubble of stocks and real estate. And I don't know about you, but my real estate has gone up in the last year and a half. I'm not a big stock guy. I mean, I don't talk about it. I certainly have a stock portfolio. My stock portfolio went up 27% last year. That's pretty good. So why is that? Well, the Federal Reserve has been pumping money, U.S. government pumping money into our economy. The Federal Reserve has made borrowing costs extremely low. And we have all this available capital to invest, and you're going to see assets grow. So as this inflation rises, and again, if you've been reading any kind of periodical or online forum, you're seeing that the Fed this year is going to start raising short-term interest rates. They're going to start, these benchmark rates are going to go up from zero, and they're going to slowly raise these. And as they do that, that in theory should put the brakes on some of the economy. Things will be more expensive to borrow. Businesses will pay more for credit. Things will start to tighten a little bit. Consumers will pull back a little bit. And the question is can we have what they call a soft landing? Can all these mechanisms work together in order for us to have a soft landing? Now, there are other things at play, things way over my head, geopolitics. You have the Russians sitting on the Ukrainian border, ready to invade. How does that affect us here in Rockville, Maryland, and Bethesda, Maryland, and Largo, Maryland? I have no clue, but it seems like it does. And so all these things make people jittery. They make businesses unsure. And this could lead to a pretty hard landing. We could see some assets deflate. We could see some of our real estate go down in value. Some of our stock portfolios go down in value. Hard to know. Now, are we in a housing bubble? Well, from what I see on the ground, for what I see in my own business, we're not there yet, certainly. And the reason I believe we're not there yet is for a very simple economics 101, first day of class, supply and demand theory. We don't have enough supply of homes in this area, and I'm talking this area. We don't have enough supply of homes to meet the demand. Therefore, if interest rates go up a little bit gradually, as these homeowners come into the market, and they're just not shocked if we don't go from 3% 30-year fix to 6% 30-year fix. If it's a gradual hike, which the Fed is saying they're going to do, as these owners come in and we don't have a lot of inventory, they're going to be buying the houses that are on the market. Now, I do not think we're going to see these tremendous gains in our real estate, meaning every house that goes on the market is up $10, $15, $20, $30,000. I think that will slow. But I think with that slowing, With the rates going up a little bit, demand's still there, supply's still low. My hope is that we can have kind of a gradual normalization of the housing market. Well, yes, maybe you can't bump up your list price $20,000, $30,000 when you put your house on in April. Maybe it won't go in the first weekend with 3 contracts, all good, all the same, and you have to do some bidding, bidding up of the house. Maybe it'll take a few weeks to get a good contract. Maybe you will have to give a little bit of seller concession. But I do believe that 2022 should be fine. And I'm putting my stake on the fact that we don't have a lot of inventory. Folks, I'm actively buying and selling. I did 8 transactions in January, 3 purchases, 5 sales. I'm seeing this happen all the time, and I'm seeing it in my own business. I'm getting showings. I'm getting good looks. People are a little bit hesitant. People are taking their time a little bit more, but my prices are steady. I'm getting the right prices for the homes. I'm giving up a little bit here and there when I have to, maybe on a home inspection, maybe a little closing help, but the houses are still moving, and I don't see that changing at all this year. Now, let's go into next year. Let's go into later this year, seasonal changes, and going into 2023. Well, again, it's anybody's guess, but the hope is, because we have still a lot of openings and jobs. Now, granted, some of these jobs are service-oriented, beginning jobs, working at a warehouse or Chick-fil-A or different industries, some home healthcare businesses. But there's still a lot of job openings in the professional services divisions where the salaries are very, very good. My office is at a place called Launch. Launch is a series of offices, kind of a shared office experience. I came here about a year ago because they offered a great deal. I didn't need the space that I used to have, and they gave me a very good deal. Well, I was talking to the manager the other day, and she has an opening in a downtown office as a manager of a Launch office. Folks, honestly, it's not a challenging job, but it's a good professional job. They're offering $60,000 a year. They're offering a full benefit package with vacation. I mean, it's a good job. They can't find an applicant. She used to say 10 applicants every day for 3 weeks. Now they're getting a sprinkle of 1 or 2 a week. So there are good jobs opening. So my hope is, as these jobs are opening, wages are forced up a little bit, interest rates gradually go up. Okay. Some of this supply chain and pandemic mess is easing. My hope is that we'll have a softer landing. Now, that's my hope. I have no idea. So the answer to our first question, and please go ahead and let me know your thoughts too. But the answer to this first question, are we in a housing bubble? I don't believe we are. I don't believe we are right now. I don't believe we are going to be going into a housing bubble in the next 6 to 10, maybe even next year. Next year, we'll see. What exactly does that mean? I don't know. I think it probably means, yes, prices might level. Prices might come down a little bit. I do not think we see a 2007, 2008 just fiasco where some of these houses are going to go down 20, 25, 30%. I don't see it. It could happen, but I don't see it. Lama Bryant, are millennials buying? That's the other thing that's happening. Yes, they are. This whole wave of this next generation of home buyers has put off their home buying, right? And why? Well, we had a lot of things going on. I mean, this generation is definitely burdened with a little bit more debt. We came through a horrendous recession for them. Wages haven't really gone up much. They're starting to ease up now, and they have a lot of student debt. They're putting off marriages. Rents are much higher. They don't have as much buying power, if you will, as the previous generation. And so I think that now they're ready, they're forming households, and they're ready to buy homes. But again, the builders have not kept up with demand. And in some of these big cities, there's just not a whole lot of room to expand. So you're going to have some pressure on the existing inventory. Our first-time home buying millennials buying, are they coming up with creative housing strategies? Well, I think both. And I think maybe you're in that generation, because it's a very good question. I think they are buying, and I think some of those that are burdened with debt, that maybe have been living in mom and dad's basement for a while, are getting out. Maybe they're teaming up. Maybe they're house sharing, house hacking, if you will. And so some of that is definitely coming to roost. So I think when you look at all of these things where you have this pent up demand for housing, where you don't have a lot of housing out there, where rates historically are still very, very good, even as they inch up a little bit. And I think if you stay in your right lane, and we're going to talk about that in the blueprint, I think you can make a lot of money during this time. All right, Mohammed, what level of impact you speculate due to forbearance expiration? It must impact and bring some foreclosures too. Mohammed, that is a great question. And we were looking back last year, and one of the sessions we did is why I defaulted on my mortgage. I took a forbearance on a couple mortgages because I wanted to see how the banks responded. I was curious. I had the ability to pay the mortgages. I put some of the rents in kind of a separate account to make sure I didn't spend it, but I wanted to see how they reacted. It was so simple to literally call the bank and say, yes, I want to be in forbearance. No paperwork, no nothing. And they literally put your mortgage off for 3 months. Now, they claimed that they were going to report to credit agencies. And honestly, as I said in that presentation, I shouldn't have done it. It was a pain in the neck. Straightening out some of this with some of the banks was crazy. They could never kind of catch up with the paperwork. But all in all, the banks worked with people and they still are working with people. So, and with the employment situation the way it is, I don't think this forbearance problem is going to come with this massive wave of foreclosures. I don't see it. Certainly, there'll be some trickle down effect. Certainly, there'll be some houses, owners, borrowers that could not keep up with these forbearances and eventually end in foreclosure. But the other thing you're seeing, if you read the data, is that people have historical amounts of equity. We had this run up in value. So people have equity. So before, right, when we had the foreclosure crisis, people were upside down. They were upside down by 20, 25, 30%. There was no hope. They were smart to sign the house back to the bank. They were smart to just live in it as long as they could. But now people have equity. There's ability for them to sell it, maybe make a little profit, pay a realtor if they go that route, and still come out ahead. So I don't see that as being a big of issue as everyone thinks it might be. Now, again, so have we answered the question? Is there going to be are we in a housing bubble? I think the answer right now is no. I don't think it. I don't think we are. I think this run up in values has been really a basic supply and demand. I mean, look around your neighborhood. Look where you live. If you're a homeowner, you own a townhouse, condo, single family house, look around your neighborhood. We're in the third week of July. There's not a whole lot of signs up. There's just not a lot of inventory. I'm in housing developments where there's 500, 600 houses and there's 1 or 2 houses on the market. We're the next house on the market. So again, you can't price $20,000, $30,000 over the last listing. I have a property right now in Rockville in a townhouse community, and one of the last houses sold for $415,000. Now, my house, this was a rental property. We did not fully renovated it. It's clean, it's updated, but it's not brand new. And we didn't go at $415 in the market. We went at $399 with the hope that we'd get a contract and maybe be able to get a little bit of a bidding war. And that's what we've gotten. We've gotten a couple contracts, and we're going to end up in the low 400s, which compared to the 415 house is a winner because we don't have a deck. We didn't have brand new windows. We didn't have a brand new kitchen. We had new flooring, new appliances. Our house was clean, it's painted. The bathrooms are updated 5 or 6 years ago, but it wasn't comparable. So we got a good number. Now, if I went in at that price at $429.9 or $439.9, my house wouldn't have sold. It would have sat there. So you have to be smart in how you position your properties here in order to get the market to come to you and to sell your properties. All right. So I think, at least from my opinion, we have answered this question. I don't believe we're in a housing bubble because of something simple. Supply, gradual rate hikes. It's not going to be all at once. Gradual rate hikes, limited supply, strong jobs right now. There's still a lot of jobs out there. And I just don't believe that. We do have inflation, but I think inflation hopefully will be combated. Now, if inflation goes out of control and the whole economy goes in the tank and we have to raise rates, sixfold over 3 months, yeah, we could all be in a great recession. But again, then we morph into our 2-year blueprint and we change up what we're going to do. Okay, it might be a little tougher in that environment to sell a home. So we might have to do things a little bit about differently. Gloria, how do you think wholesaling a property is doing in this economy? All right, so Gloria, that's a perfect leading question. I'm going to take you on the road with me because that's perfect. So let's talk now about what do we do? How do we position ourselves in this current housing climate, if you will, in order to profit from this? All right, 1A, if we're not in a housing bubble, and 1B, if we do go into a housing bubble. Well, again, as I first started out the discussion, I don't know what your business is. We have talked in this WREIA platform for years and years. One of the greatest things about real estate investment is the vastness of it, the ability to go so many different ways. Let's just rattle off a few. You could buy, renovate, and sell houses, make money. You could wholesale real estate, as Gloria just mentioned. You could buy residential real estate and hold it for long-term rental. You could buy small commercial properties, hold them for long-term rental. You become a real estate broker and just create commissions working with investors and homeowners. You could be someone that buys performing notes. You could be someone that buys non-performing notes, kind of renegotiate those and hold those long-term or flip those out. That's just a few. There's so many different variations. You could get into options. You could get into so many different things, multi-unit investing, self-storage business. I mean, the ideas of what you can do in real estate investment is crazy. But let's just talk about some of these. Now, when you're talking, Gloria, about wholesaling real estate, and we'll talk about this as we go in our 2-year blueprint. And let me back up. This is what I would start doing, okay? Knowing that it's not going to be all a bowl of cherries as we go through our careers. Real estate's not always going to go up, 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 up. There's going to be dips. There's going to be times of stagnation. There's going to be times of acceleration. There's going to be times where the market goes down. So what can we do and how can we protect ourselves? So in this part of the market, these are some of the things that I would start getting more familiar with. I would be getting educated with. I'd be surrounding myself with a team in this regard. Number one, as Gloria said, wholesaling. Folks, it doesn't matter what the market does. It doesn't matter where the market goes. Learning how to be a good wholesaler, learning how to identify good opportunities in whatever genre of real estate investment you want, having the ability to control that piece of real estate, and then having the ability to take that contract, take that piece of real estate and assign it to another real estate investor, someone maybe that wants to hold it, maybe someone that wants to live in it. There's lots of different scenarios there. So understanding and getting educated on wholesaling is always a good idea. The other thing you want to do is to protect yourself from the downside, protect yourself from a market that maybe turns on us and becomes very difficult. You want to make sure the assets that you are buying have a couple different exit strategies. Okay. You don't want to necessarily put all your eggs in a basket where you're going down to, and I always use the neighborhood pet worth. I don't know. I just do. But you don't want to put all your effort and energies into buying a $580,000 house in Petworth, putting $200,000 in it and hoping to get 950 grand. Now, when the market is accelerating, when the market is good, when buyers are out and plentiful, where money is cheap, that might be a great strategy. And I'm not saying you can't pick off one or two of those and do that. But if that's everything that you're doing, you could be in trouble. Because if the market turned, now all of a sudden you're sitting on a very expensive property. You can't rent that property anywhere near what you have in it to make any kind of cash flow. And if that market decelerates, you could be in trouble. So you want a property that hopefully you can do a couple things with. If your goal is to buy, renovate, and sell it, great, you do that. If the market turns during that process, maybe you could rent it. Maybe you could lease option it. Maybe you could reduce the price to at least get out of that property and move on. Maybe you wholesale some of those. So again, wholesaling is one area where I would probably focus in on, certainly. Number two, like I said, find properties with multiple exit strategies. Now, generally, that means first-time home buyer neighborhoods. Folks, ever since I've been doing this for 25, probably going on 30 years now, I've always focused majority of my business in working class, first-time home buyer neighborhoods. That's where most of these deals are. That's where most of these properties allow us to go different directions. So if we have a disruption in the market, we're not killed. We're not out of business. We're not Chapter 13. We can survive that 6 months, year and a half, and we can actually thrive by holding through a downturn and coming up on the backside of this and doing very, very well. And so having properties with multiple strategies is a good way to go. So maybe you find a house, maybe you try to wholesale it. Maybe you don't make quite as much as you want to make. And so you say, well, I'm not going to wholesale this. I'm going to come in and renovate this one, renovate it, sell it. Well, it doesn't sell when I renovate it. Well, I can hold it as a long-term rental. Having those options along the way will make you a lot of money. So wholesaling, multiple strategies. The other thing is you want to surround yourself now knowing that the market might not always be rosy. What are some techniques that were popular back in 08, 09, 10, 11 that have kind of gone out of vogue but could come back? What about short sales? Folks, I got an email today from an investor that sent me some information about a team of agents that focus in on short sales and what he's doing. And it's brilliant. He's getting ahead of the curve. He knows that he's going to come across properties here in the coming months. Months could be 6 months, 10 months, a year, could be 2 months, where there might not be enough equity for him to do what he wants to do. But the seller still wants to sell. So he's putting together his team now. So he's ahead of it. So instead of coming across that lead and going, where do I turn? What do I do? He's already got that in place. He's forward thinking. He's putting things in place before it actually happens. So now his engine will be up and running. So when this happens, he just plugs and plays and starts throwing these people into this wholesale program. The short sale program, where some of these are going to spit out, where he can buy, renovate, sell, where he can buy and wholesale, where he can buy and keep his rentals. Brilliant. Do it now. Start now. So start understanding techniques and strategies that work well in markets that aren't as robust. Short sales. Learn to wholesale. Properties with multiple strategies. What about understanding notes? What about understanding non-performing notes? What about if we go back to where the banks now have some notes that aren't performing? Wouldn't it be nice to learn now about how to do some of those things in order to, when it comes about, you're ready. You don't have to search for training. You don't have to look around and go, what am I going to do? You already be ready. You already be kind of ahead of the curve, if you will. So when I'm setting up my 2-year blueprint, and again, every one of yours is going to be a little bit different based on where you are in this business and what you want to accomplish. But for me, I'm going along as business as usual this year, meaning my business, if you're new to WREIA, my core business is I buy, renovate, and sell properties for income. I wholesale real estate for income. I take that income and I reinvest it in long-term residential and long-term smaller commercial properties. Now, I'm in the point of my career where I'm looking to pay down a lot of my rental properties, right? I'm more about cash flow right now. I'm more about creating, lifestyle. My kids are getting older. My one's gone, working, independently now. Got him off the family car insurance. It was great. And my other one's getting ready to head off to college next year. So he'll be kind of on the college avenue, if you will, for the next hopefully 4 years. And so I'm looking for more, to reposition my business. Some of you know I've done some tax-free exchanges to move properties out of different counties. I think are failing a little bit around this area, moving them out to different places. So I'm repositioning things and I'm looking for cash flow. I'm not actually looking to buy 50 more rentals. Now, in the last downturn in, I guess 11, 12, and I was a little late, I put together some investors, and we bought a number of rental properties, residential rental properties that we bought in the cheap, that we've kept, that we've rented, and that we've actually been selling here recently and have done very, very well on all these properties. Now, if I'm you, okay, and I'm in that position in my business, I'm starting to think about that. Where do I want to capture if the market turns? Where can I capture some good 5, 7, 10-year residential real estate in this area? Where is that? And if it's not in this area, what other parts of the country? Folks, things have turned with obviously the power of the internet and the power of all the tech tools we have. You don't have to necessarily own residential real estate right here in your own backyard. There's opportunities in other parts of the country. So identify some of those areas, get ready to scoop up some good properties that cash flow, that have a little bit of equity that you can hold through any kind of downturn that we might or might not experience. It's not going to be this year, but you can get ready and you can position yourself in order to do that. So, 2-year blueprint. Let's keep going back and reviewing this. And again, if you have comments, if you have some own situations of your own, throw them out to the body here. It'd be good for all of us to hear some of those things. Learning to wholesale, learning about non-performing notes, surrounding yourself with techniques that work in down markets like short sales and buying notes, continuing doing what you're doing this year, looking to put together a team if your interest is in uh, short-term residential rentals. So maybe you again pick up some of these things as you go through. As I said, a lot of this depends on what you're doing and where you want to go. I threw a text to my son last week and I said, Jack, I said, fortunes are made in downturns, because I know my son and I know he's investing in crypto. I know he's investing in different NFTs. I know he's investing in different stocks. And if I know him and I know him well, he's probably gotten beaten up a little bit in January because the market's been down 10%. NFTs have been hit. Cryptocurrencies have come in half. And he kind of sent me back a little smiley face. He goes, I know. You've always told me I'm just going to keep investing and keep buying. And that's the response I wanted. Don't panic. Don't think that everything's always going to go up. It's a long-term race here, folks. It's a long-term ability to stay the course, have a plan, execute that plan, surround yourself with good people, and you will do very, very well in real estate investment. So keep coming back. What would I do? Folks, 2 years, I would begin getting educated on areas where you're maybe a little soft or weak. Okay, things like notes, things like short sales, things like raising private capital, looking for good residential real estate cash flowing markets, whether here or elsewhere, surrounding yourself with a good team of people. All those things can be done in good markets and bad markets. Learning how to wholesale, as Gloria said at the beginning of our message here, you can always wholesale. It doesn't matter what the market is doing. Is it easier when the market is going up? Everything is easier when the market's going up. But that doesn't mean there's a base value of that piece of real estate. And if you offer that to the marketplace at less than that value, and they can see that value, that house will get snapped up. That mobile home park will get snapped up. That non-performing note will get snapped up. All these things can be sold anytime because there's always an intrinsic value of what that is. But any good courses on defaulted notes that you're aware of, John? Well, yes, I give one. That's what I'm gonna tell you. There are. If you do some, and I don't think you have to run out and necessarily buy a course. Just get online, get on Google, get in the library, start buying some books on defaulted notes. In fact, let me see. No, I don't have one over here. I was reading one earlier today. But we give courses throughout the year. And since you kind of opened that up, it is January, beginning of the year. A lot of you know that I do some mentoring, and I have, on any subject. It's more of consulting these days. But what I do is offer 3 1-hour sessions on any subject you want. Lam, if you wanted to talk about defaulted notes, I could get you on the right path. It's 3 1-hour consulting sessions, I call them, or mentoring sessions on any subject that you like. And it's $500, not $500 per hour, $500 for the whole session. We can do it either online. We can do it in person at my office. Justin might put something up here on the screen at some point, but you basically just text me and or email me at that on the screen. Tell me the subject you're interested in. I'll follow up with you. If we're a good match, we'll go ahead and do that. These are good, intense 1-hour sessions on anything you like: raising capital, finding good rental markets, maybe consulting on some defaulted notes and how to get educated on that, where to go on that. Maybe some short sale instruction right now. Maybe just basic finding good deals. I mean, people are struggling finding good deals. Folks, they're out there. They've always been out there. You need to know where to look. You have to put together a strategic marketing plan in order to follow that. And you don't spend a ton of money. You either spend time or money, one or the other. So a lot of different subjects. So if you're interested in that all, you could text me, you can email me. I'll set something up with you. If you're interested in a 2-year blueprint, we'll do a very specific one for you based on where you are, based on what your knowledge of real estate is, what your strategy and techniques are, what your capital base is, what your network looks like, and we can set that up for you. So it doesn't matter if you're just starting out or if you're well on your way. We can kind of figure that out for that 2 years. But again, what I'm selling to you now is I would go business as usual right now. Okay, business as usual. I would be looking to surround yourself with some of the things that are probably coming down the pike. First, I'd be reading anything and everything that you possibly can about real estate, about the markets, about the Federal Reserve, about inflation, about geopolitics, about anything that's going on with the economy. I would read. Understand that a lot of times that's a bunch of suits sitting in offices crunching data and looking at it, but you can glean from that and then talk to people that quote unquote are on the street. What I mean, people that are actively investing in real estate or doing what you want to be doing in your local communities. Those are some of the best people, the best barometers, because we're seeing it firsthand. We're seeing it firsthand. I saw right away that all of a sudden I wasn't getting 4 or 5 contracts on a house in a weekend. Things were slowing down a little bit. So you can get a good idea from people that are actively involved in the business. And so that's kind of, some of the things I have for you. Any questions or comments tonight? What are some folks thinking? Let me look at some of the comments here. Let's see. What about a stock event like Russia going into Ukraine? Like what happens there to this could be a prolonged European war. Sure, Lemma. I mean, that's if Russia goes into the Ukraine, who knows? Who knows what kind of unrest that could bring to the country. Hopefully cooler heads will prevail and that won't happen. So there's so much out there. Okay, there's so much out there that we're not privy to, if you will, and the experts aren't either, by the way, that could have an effect on us. But that's why we have to be prepared, because remember, as I said, fortunes are made in down markets. So let's say Russia goes into Ukraine, and let's say all of a sudden our oil triples, and gas is $7. Let's say rates go up to 6%. The world's on fire. Good luck selling a house. Well, you're going to pivot. You're going to be learning more and understanding more creative strategies to sell houses. You're probably going to be renting some more houses. You're going to be, looking to buy some defaulted debt. So there's lots of things that we can do that will still allow us to make a living and still allow us to profit handsomely from real estate investment. It's just not going to be exactly what we do today. So that's why I say you got to stay up on this stuff. You can't sleep at the wheel. You have to make good buying decisions. So when you buy your next real estate asset, your next property, depending on what you want to do with it, hopefully you have a couple, strategies, exit strategies in order to get out in case something happens during the meantime. So a lot of exciting things going on. And my hope is, and I'm sure your hope is too, and if you've been reading and you've been feeling some of this, that, we've been dealing with this pandemic now for 3 calendar years. My hope is that middle of the year toward the fall, we keep saying this, hopefully we're on the back end of this, or at least we're on the back end understanding how to live with this, and it won't disrupt our lives so much and give us so much unease and so much unknown that we can move forward in some of our business decisions. That would be a huge thing for us as real estate investors in the economy, where people could come out and people could get together more freely on a broad basis. I mean, a lot of you know that I took a survey in the fall about WREIA. We were planning on coming back together, but with this Omicron variant and with so many people sick, it just wasn't a good time. So our hope is that we'll be back together in person, at least on some cases, and some of this stuff will play out. Other questions, comments? Going once, going twice. Well, if I can help any of you with any kind of consulting or mentoring, like I said, it's 3 one-hour sessions online or in person. It's $500 for the whole deal. Be happy to go any direction that you like with it. You let me know, and then we'll talk about it. Um, One more question here. I'm just looking, see if we have. What's your stance on multi-unit buildings and up? Chris, my stance on 4-unit buildings is buy as many as you can. Um, the challenge with 4-unit buildings in this area, if you're specifically talking this area, it's a price point. I mean, you got stuff now down in Trinidad going for $8-9 million. Well, the rents aren't going to support that necessarily. So if you can identify markets where you can buy multifamily housing, 4 units, 6 units, 10 units. I was in an area a few years ago out in Ohio that worked beautifully for that. I wish our area was built more that way, where we had more multi-unit buildings. If you find good multi-unit buildings that make sense, get educated on rents and how numbers work, and make sure you don't skimp any numbers, and you can find some good 4-unit buildings. Absolutely, because the beauty of those is it's just like small commercial properties, same way. If 1 or 2 of those units go down, in other words, you don't have them rented, you're still okay. You still have enough money. A lot of times it's 50% of the building will pay the bills, and the other 50% can be cash flow. So if you have 2 units that aren't, up and running or up in rental, or they're vacated, you still have 2 in play. You're paying your bills, you're paying your mortgage, you're paying your taxes, your insurance, your utilities, and so forth. And then as you get those others rented, your profit, your cash flow starts going up. And then some people, a lot of younger people, might, if they have the ability to find one, to live in one. And that's even better, because now you're paying your mortgage, you're rent free. So absolutely, the challenge around here specifically, like Tacoma Park, there's from 4 6 units, but they have rent caps. You might be able to go out to Hagerstown in Maryland, possibly Baltimore. Virginia, go out a little bit further out in the suburbs. They're hard to find, but if you find a good one, and the prices work, I'm all for any kind of 4-unit, 6-unit buildings. I like those better than single family rentals, quite honestly. Last spring, you spoke positively of a swarm of foreclosures coming in the Montgomery County area. Do you still see that? Yeah, Jim, I don't. I did. I thought it was coming because of the forbearance agreements. Um, they were plentiful. A lot of people took advantage of those forbearance agreements, but the banks have been so flexible in their terms and their qualifying, and they're putting some of the debt on the back of the mortgages, that they learned in 08, 09, 010. They do not want to be in the property ownership business anymore. So they learned to look deeper and take a closer look at people's situations. Now, there is going to be some fallout, and foreclosures, as of August, September of last year, are starting to come back online. I mean, attorneys are starting to take foreclosures. They're able to file some of the defaults, and you're going to see a few more foreclosures. But I don't see a rash of those foreclosures coming. If you start seeing them, again, bone up on your auctions, get to the auction sites, courthouses, the online auctions, start to put together some private money and take advantage of some of those prices. But I don't see an influx of those coming, although I thought I did. But again, this is where I talk about it's not an exact science. You can see something, but we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And from my viewpoint, from what I've seen, is that banks are really working with people to cure these defaults, to reimagine those mortgages, to recast them, if you will. And it's been a pretty good thing. Does the fact commercial is down have any effect on residential? Bethesda, Georgia, or having to attract commercial tenants? Does the impact immediate residential area? Again, Lama, very good questions. And I think the commercial space is an interesting sector here. And it is a bit scary. I'm in an office building, again, on this 3rd floor, where 2 of the largest spaces, we haven't seen a soul for 2 years. Again, these are tech companies. They can perform, and they can go ahead and operate with folks, working from home. But what happens when the lease comes up? Do they lease as much space? My guess is no. Some of the smaller tenant office buildings are having a little bit of harder time. I have one of these in Virginia, and I've been pretty good. I have 1 vacant space. It's taken me a while now to fill, and that person is me, meaning it's a smaller business owner that's looking for an office, that does not want to work out of their house. But again, some of that, my hope is, will play out as we come back, get out of this pandemic. People are tired of working from their homes, and we'll see a little bit of influx of that. But Can it have an effect? Certainly. I think that whole section of the economy is being reimagined. I think people thinking that they're never going to go back to an office is fairyland thinking. I think employers are going to demand it. I think we'll go to more of a hybrid, though, depending on the industry and what employers can come up with. But the thought that people aren't going to go back ever, I don't see that. I see a hybrid model. I see some people with the ability to work from home having that flexibility. I think it'll be a benefit of working for certain companies. But again, markets turn, things change. Commercial real estate investors are some of the most creative people that I've met. They will come up with solutions, and they'll come up with ideas how to reimagine these office buildings, and we'll see. We need more housing, that's for sure. I think you'll see some of the larger, you're already seeing some of it. There's been some examples of developers going in and looking hard at retrofitting some of these older office buildings into residential, and it's a big project, certainly, but I think you're going to see some more of that too. But again, we're in an incredibly interesting, incredibly unknowing time, if you will, and it'll be fascinating to see how some of this plays out. And I don't think anyone quite knows. Observing that more office space are being converted into residential kind of spaces. Yeah, exactly, Lisa. Good to hear from you. Yeah, absolutely. They're gonna reimagine those, just like malls. Malls are going to be reimagined too, like they already have been, and that'll continue. It's good real estate, and it'll figure out based on what the market and what the people want, and they'll be providing some of that space. So, sometimes there's short-term pain and so forth, but we'll have to see. I wish I had a crystal ball. I really do. If I had a crystal ball, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. But we don't, and we do the best we can, and we move forward. So I hope some of this was helpful. I really appreciate you all kind of chiming in. This is just one man's opinion, as I said. I've been right many times. I've been wrong many more times. So I hope you kind of take that as a grain of salt. Sarah, is Airbnb an option in Montgomery County? Honestly, I've not known too many people that have had too much success with Airbnb in Montgomery County. I've known a few people that have tried it. I don't think they've been overwhelmingly successful. I'm sure if it's the right location, maybe in Bethesda or other areas that are maybe closer down to DC, I'm sure they can. But again, the housing prices are so high. If it's not like we're overlooking a beach or overlooking, a resort area where there's an influx of people all the time. And I think the rates based on what Airbnb is taking and some of the things, I don't know how successful it's been. I'm not the right person to ask that though, because I have not done, I've stayed in Airbnbs. I've probably been in 50, 60 Airbnbs in my life around the world, but I do not own an Airbnb. And really have no plans of doing that. I think it's a great model. And again, someone I'm sure can do well with that. That's what I mean by real estate investment. All these avenues can be done very, very well. You have to pick one, specialize in it, get to know it, get involved in it, get immersed in it, understand it, profit from it, move on, add some other things. And I think you can do very well. So consulting, 3 hours, $500. Let me know if you're interested. Folks, I appreciate you joining in. You have my cell phone, you have my email. If I can help you in any way, let me know. I'm out there every day working, and I appreciate you joining me. January 2022, hard to believe, and we will be off and running. And if you have any ideas for topics and so forth, let me know. As I said, my ultimate goal is to get back in person a little bit this year. We'll see how that plays out. But have a good few weeks here. We'll be back with you in February. In the meantime, reach out. Be happy to spend some time with you. Take care and talk to you soon.